The company's moving in a new direction, Mark. That's how she started. No small talk, no handshake, no eye contact. Just that line, flat and corporate, like a guillotine blade dropped from a script. I'd been in enough meetings to recognize a setup before it hit the floor, but this one still cut deeper than I expected. My name's Mark Ellison, 56 years old. Senior IT Systems Manager at Lang Industries. Or at least I was until that morning. 28 years in the same building, same network, same sleepless nights, keeping the company alive through every crash, breach, and blackout. I'd built their digital backbone by hand when we still used dial-up modems. I'd watched the founders grow gray and the interns become executives. I'd carried the place through every system failure and merger, but now I was sitting across from Victoria Lang, the new CEO 30-something, sleek, confident, and utterly unaware of what any of the blinking lights on the server rack actually meant. She sat on one side of the glass conference table like it was a throne, her HR director on the other, expression neutral, but sympathetic, the kind of look you give to a wounded animal you're about to put down. Behind them, the Phoenix skyline shimmered in the window reflection. The city kept moving while my career was being carved apart in quiet corporate language. "Mark," Victoria said, crossing her legs, "you've been with us a long time, and we're grateful for that, truly. But the industry's evolving faster than we are, and we need to bring in fresh perspective." Fresh perspective. I'd heard the term before. It meant cheaper labor with flashier titles. I waited for the rest, for the name that would replace mine on the internal directory. When it came, it sounded almost rehearsed. "My daughter, Alyssa, will be taking over your position. She just finished a digital strategy program at ASU. She has a great eye for modern solutions." For a second, I thought she was joking. Alyssa, the same kid I'd seen at last year's holiday party, taking selfies next to the company Christmas tree, while I fixed the wireless network, was going to modernize the systems I built before she learned long division. I managed a polite smile. "I see." Victoria leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table, her perfume cutting through the recycled air. "It's nothing personal, Mark. You've done great work, but technology moves on. You're outdated like a typewriter in an iPhone world." The words landed soft in tone but hard in meaning. The HR rep shifted uncomfortably, sliding a thin folder across the table. Inside were my severance terms, an NDA, and a signature line waiting for a pen that wasn't shaking. I looked at the folder, then at her. "You know, when your father founded this company, he said one thing to me I never forgot. This place runs on what Mark builds." She smiled faintly. "And we're grateful for that foundation. But foundations don't move. We need flexibility now." She didn't mean it as an insult, but it was one anyway. Foundations don't move because they're what keep everything else standing. I could have told her that. I could have told her that every invoice, every payroll, every transaction her company processed passed through systems I'd coded in long-dead programming languages no one under 30 had even heard of. But I didn't. I just nodded, took the pen, and signed. There was no scene, no shouting, no broken glass, just the quiet scratch of ink on paper and the sound of my own heartbeat counting down the last seconds of a 28-year chapter. As I walked toward the elevators, I saw her Alyssa Lang coming down the hall, latte in hand, phone in the other, laughing about something on her screen. She was 25, maybe, dressed like a startup influencer. Not someone about to manage an enterprise network with 6 data centers across 2 states. She smiled at me like I was part of the furniture being moved out. "Hey, you must be Mark," she said. "My mom said you'd show me the ropes someday." I gave a small nod. "Ropes are gone now. Just watch your step." Her mother appeared behind her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You'll learn, honey. Remember what Dad used to say, experience is overrated." I almost laughed. Experience is overrated. Tell that to the backup servers that saved this company after the 2014 breach. Tell that to the payroll system that would crash if someone forgot to restart the cache before midnight. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped in. The mirrored walls reflected a man I barely recognized. Older, sure, but calm, composed, not defeated. I watched the numbers descend, the building shrinking around me. When the doors opened, sunlight hit like cold water. She thought I'd just disappear. People like Victoria always do. They never notice the wires until they're gone. The mornings were too quiet now. No calls from panicked interns. No all-nighters keeping servers alive. No one needing a miracle before sunrise. Just me, my black coffee, and the hum of an old laptop sitting at the end of the kitchen table. The same laptop I'd used for years to fix their problems. Lang Industries might have erased my name from their directory, but they'd forgotten one thing. My backdoor login, 28 years of infrastructure, and they never noticed the root key buried in the core system. I told myself I opened it just to check on things. Old habits. But even I didn't believe that. The admin console loaded slow, fan whirring, a digital ghost of the empire I'd built. It felt like walking through the halls of an abandoned factory. My factory machines still running, lights still on, but no one left who understood what any of it did. Alyssa's name blinked in the user log. Admin privileges. That wasn't possible. She wasn't supposed to have root access. She shouldn't even know what the term meant. I leaned back, sipped my coffee, and stared at the line of code like it had personally insulted me. It wasn't anger that came first. It was curiosity. The kind of curiosity that used to keep me up at 2 a.m., tracking bugs through thousands of lines of code. I clicked deeper, tracing permissions. Whoever set her account up had copied mine entirely. My scripts, my protocols, my clearance. She didn't even bother renaming the templates. Sloppy. I could have revoked it in seconds, locked her out, restored order. But I didn't. I wanted to see how deep the rot went. As the logs loaded, I remembered the nights when I'd been the one keeping everything from collapsing. The ransomware attack in 2016, 98% of the company's files, encrypted by some teenager in Russia. I'd worked 72 hours straight, bypassed the payload manually, and restored every single byte. Victoria, then just a VP, had gone on television and called it a coordinated recovery effort led by senior management. I'd been in the server room, eating cold pizza when she said it. Now her daughter was undoing everything I'd built with every keystroke. I pulled up the production environment and scrolled through the last week's commits. Broken syntax, missing semicolons, untested scripts deployed live. A toddler with a matchbox in a fireworks factory. One wrong command and half the company's operations would freeze. I should have felt panic, the old reflex to protect. Instead, I felt stillness, detached, like a surgeon watching a patient refuse anesthesia. I started documenting everything, every error, every edit, every breach of protocol. Screenshots with timestamps, stored locally, mirrored to an encrypted drive. Not sabotage, just record-keeping, evidence. I told myself it was for my own curiosity, a case study in corporate negligence. But some quiet part of me, the part that used to believe in justice, was taking notes for something else. Between clicks, I heard my old mentor's voice. Tom Keller. Gone 10 years now, but still sharper in memory than most people alive. Never react, Mark. He used to say. Gather. Wait. People destroy themselves when you give them enough rope. He'd been right then, and he was right now. The Langs were tying the knot themselves. I just had to let them. Days blurred together. Morning coffee, system checks, another stack of logs. Alyssa's changes spread like mold through the code-based duplicate processes, corrupted databases, memory leaks ignored. I watched her try to fix her own mistakes and create 5 more each time. She'd posted something on social media about leading digital transformation that got a few hundred likes. I almost laughed. The transformation was real, just not the kind she imagined. I tracked everything quietly, even the logins from Victoria's device. She was signing in late at night, accessing payroll systems, rerouting budget lines, unusual behavior, masked through VPNs. Not the kind of thing a CEO needed to do if everything was above board. I flagged it, saved it, archived it twice. I wasn't ready to move, but the pieces were starting to align. By the end of the week, the company's internal monitoring flagged 23 unresolved system errors. I knew the warnings by sound alone, that faint ping every time a process failed. It became background music in the kitchen, steady, rhythmic, inevitable. I sat there in the glow of the laptop screen, coffee cold, eyes dry, watching red lines fill the log like veins bursting open. The system was rotting from the inside. I didn't have to break it. I just had to let gravity do its work. The first call came on a Tuesday morning, just after sunrise. I was halfway through my coffee when my old office line lit up on the laptop screen. The company had kept my credentials active longer than they should have, and now the ghosts from Lang Industries were calling them. I let it ring twice before answering. "Mark? It's Ron. You didn't hear this from me, but things are bad. Real bad." Ron had worked under me for 12 years. Dependable, solid, the kind of guy who didn't panic unless the walls were already on fire. His voice cracked as he continued. She deleted the archive server. 40 terabytes gone. Every client contract, every audit trail, wiped out. I stared at the screen. "Accidentally?" She said she was cleaning up storage space. "Hit the wrong directory." He gave a bitter laugh. "Victoria told everyone it was an opportunity to modernize our data strategy." Of course she did. After I hung up, I opened the admin console one last time and checked the logs. The deletion was real, and the backup failed because Alyssa had rerouted permissions into an endless loop. Weeks of lazy patches, no version control, no oversight. Every red flag I'd watched grow had now erupted into full fire. Clients would start calling within hours. Vendors wouldn't get paid. Payroll would jam. The machine was choking on its own code, and the operators didn't even know where the power switch was. I could have stepped in. It would have taken me 3 hours to rebuild the archive tree, maybe less. But I didn't move. For 28 years, I'd been their invisible safety net. Every time someone above me blundered, I was the one who caught the fall. I spent that afternoon organizing the digital dossier I'd been building quietly since the day they fired me. Screenshots, emails, access logs, transaction trails. It was a portrait of negligence, painted in data. Every timestamp told a story. The midnight edits Victoria made to payroll scripts, the false consulting invoices, labeled under Alyssa's name, the hidden bonus transfers. I stored everything on 3 separate drives. One of them air-gapped, the way we used to secure critical infrastructure before cloud servers. Made everyone lazy. 2 days later, I got another call. This one from an unfamiliar number. "Mr. Ellison? It's Jenny from accounting." Her voice trembled, but not from fear of me, from something else. I don't know who else to trust. The ledgers aren't adding up. Victoria's pulling money from client accounts into a consulting fund. I think she's using her daughter's name. I leaned back in my chair. How much money? Hundreds of thousands at least. Maybe more. I found it while reconciling vendor payments. She told me to delete the line items. Jenny was young, sharp, one of the few who actually understood her work. She reminded me of myself 20 years ago, still believing integrity had a place in business. "Forward what you can to a private address," I said. "And Jenny, don't talk to anyone else. Not your team, not HR, not even Ron." She hesitated. "Are you going to expose her?" "Not yet," I said. "When it falls, it'll fall fast. You just stay clear when it does." Over the next week, the collapse accelerated. Client portals crashed, payroll froze, and unpaid vendors began sending legal notices. Victoria held a company-wide meeting, all smiles and calm confidence. I watched the recording later. Her PR smile steady under pressure. "Alyssa is leading us through an innovative restructuring," she said. "Innovation looks messy, but that's how progress is made." The employees clapped, some out of fear, others out of habit. Behind that applause, the system logs told the truth. Data corruption spreading like infection. Duplicate transactions breeding by the thousands. Each one a small crack in the dam. I sat in my kitchen, watching it all unfold through the quiet glow of the monitor. It wasn't joy I felt. Not even satisfaction. Just inevitability. The machine I'd kept alive for nearly 3 decades was gasping, and I was the only one who knew where the oxygen line was. That night, I finished assembling, the dossier clean, verifiable, undeniable. I encrypted it, labeled it simply, Lang, failure, report, zip. Then I opened the console one last time. Cursor blinking like a heartbeat. My access still worked. I hovered over the command line that would revoke my privileges for good. I hit enter. The console went dark, leaving only my reflection in the screen. I'd spent 28 years keeping their systems alive. Now, I was letting them breathe on their own, like a diver letting go of a drowning man. The headline hit before sunrise. Lang Industries under federal investigation for data fraud. The letters glowed across my phone screen like a slow-burning fuse. I read it twice, then once more, letting the words sink in. Someone had leaked the documents. Not me. I hadn't needed to. Jenny had found the dossier exactly where I'd left it, hidden in plain sight, on a shared drive, mislabeled as tax projections. I'd told her to keep quiet, but I knew curiosity would win. She was too honest not to act. By mid-morning, the story was everywhere. The news anchors spoke with polished outrage, calling it a systemic collapse of corporate ethics. Reporters stood outside Lang's headquarters, their voices rising over the noise of camera shutters and shouting. I sat across the street in a corner cafe, watching it unfold through the glass window. Steam curled from my coffee cup, and the smell of burnt espresso mixed with something almost sweet vindication. Maybe, after 28 years, the company that once defined my life was eating itself alive. Inside the glass tower, chaos ruled. I could see them through the lobby's tinted windows, security guards turning away reporters, employees clutching boxes of personal items, Alyssa crying in the hallway while cameras flashed in her direction. The same hallway where I'd once spent nights fixing broken servers now looked like a crime scene. For a moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. The board moved fast. Emergency meeting was called within hours, and somehow my phone rang again. "Mr. Ellison, the board requests your presence immediately." No one had called me Mr. Ellison in years. I agreed. Not because they deserved my help, but because I wanted to see the end properly. When I walked into the boardroom, the air was heavy with fear, disguised as formality. Victoria sat at the head of the table, her designer suit immaculate, her expression a mask of calm that didn't match the tremor in her hand. Alyssa sat beside her, eyes red, mascara streaked. Around them, the board members whispered, flipping through printed copies of the leaked documents. "Mark," Victoria began, voice brittle but controlled. "You're here because there seems to be some confusion about your role in this situation." "My role?" I said. "I left 3 months ago. Whatever confusion exists now was created long after I was gone." She leaned forward, her tone sharpening. "You were the only one with the knowledge and access to manipulate those systems. These files, they look like something you'd compile." "I agree," I said evenly. "They do look like something I'd compile, because they're accurate." I reached into my bag, pulled out a thin folder, and slid it across the table. "Here's a digital timeline. Every action, every login, every transaction, time-stamped, verified, all within your administration's tenure. One of the board members, a quiet man with silver glasses, adjusted them as he scanned the first page. "These match the government's records exactly," he said. "Each one traces back to your own executive account, Miss Lang." Victoria's confidence cracked for the first time. "That's impossible," she said. "Someone must have falsified." "The audit trails are immutable," I interrupted. "You paid for the best cybersecurity money could buy. I made sure of that before I left. Every keystroke is documented, the dollar accounted for. There's no rewriting the truth this time." For a long moment, the room was silent, except for the faint hum of the air conditioner. Then, one by one, the board members turned their attention to Victoria. The vote was quick, unanimous. Termination of both Victoria and Alyssa, effective immediately. Alyssa stood up, voice trembling. "You're destroying us." I met her eyes, calm and cold. "No, you did that the day you mistook silence for weakness." They left the room flanked by security, reporters already waiting in the hallway. I stayed seated, listening to the echo of their heels fade down the corridor. Around me, the board members began talking in low, urgent tones about crisis management, legal exposure, rebuilding. None of it mattered to me anymore. I walked out of that building and into the daylight. Across the street, the cafe still buzzed with life, the barista calling orders like nothing had changed. In my pocket, the final piece of the puzzle sat on a flash drive. A ledger proving Victoria had funneled millions through shell accounts into offshore holdings. It was the kind of evidence that didn't just end careers, it ended legacies. But I didn't release it. Not yet. The world was already tearing her apart, and timing, I'd learned, was everything. I watched the sun reflect off the building's mirrored windows, the empire she'd inherited now hollowed from within. The city hummed on, indifferent, as I slipped the flash drive back into my coat. The collapse was complete, but the fall wasn't finished. Not until I decided it was. Victoria Lang stood in front of the cameras, smiling like she still believed the lights could save her. The news channels called it a statement of clarification, but everyone knew it was desperation dressed in designer silk. "These allegations," she said, voice steady, "are the result of outdated systems and technical mismanagement. My father built this company on innovation, and we're simply suffering the consequences of legacy infrastructure." I almost laughed. Legacy infrastructure. That was me. I was the legacy she was blaming. I watched from the kitchen table, laptop open, muted television in the corner, coffee cooling beside my hand. Her image flickered, lips moving without sound, the same lips that had once told me I was outdated like a typewriter. Now she was pleading for investors to stay calm, for clients to believe that everything could still be fixed. Behind her, Alyssa stood pale and trembling, clutching notes she wasn't reading. The cameras loved the symmetry mother and daughter, united in ruin. On my screen, a single file sat waiting in an encrypted folder. Final. Reboot. Zip. I'd spent weeks curating it, polishing every byte until it gleamed with precision. Inside was everything: bank transfers, falsified invoices, email threads marked confidential, the private ledger showing money funneled offshore, proof beyond denial, proof that Victoria hadn't just mismanaged, she'd stolen. I could have sent it any time, but timing mattered more than truth. The world had to be watching when the final spark hit. My cursor hovered over the send command. For a moment, I hesitated. It wasn't doubt. It was memory. 28 years of service doesn't vanish overnight. I could still see the early days' coffee-stained manuals, late nights rebooting servers by flashlight, the founder shaking my hand and calling me the heart of the system. Those memories had weight, but betrayal has gravity too, and it pulls everything down eventually. I clicked. The file uploaded in silence. 3 destinations: the board of directors, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and a curated list of journalists who'd been circling the story like vultures. It took less than a minute. When the progress bar hit 100%, I closed the laptop and sat back. There was no rush of adrenaline, no cinematic music swelling in the background. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the faint echo of my own breathing. By the next morning, the world had shifted. Every newsfeed screamed the same headline: Lang Industries accused of massive corporate fraud. The leaked documents had names, dates, signatures. There was no room for denial. The stock collapsed before lunch. The board resigned in fragments. By evening, footage showed federal agents escorting Victoria out of her mansion, her wrists bound, her expression blank. Alyssa was nowhere to be seen. Some said she'd left the city overnight. Others said she'd been seen at the airport crying into her phone. I didn't check. 2 days later, the company website went offline. Servers shut down, offices emptied, lights turned off floor by floor. I drove past the building that night, the same one where I'd spent half my life. The parking lot was deserted, windows dark except for the faint glow of an exit sign. For the first time, the servers weren't humming. I pulled over and sat there, engine idling, listening to the quiet. It wasn't triumph I felt. It was something colder, something cleaner. For 28 years, I said softly, I built systems that couldn't fail. Turns out, people were always the weakest part. The words hung in the car, heavy as smoke. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. The victory was too precise for that. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was correction. A final update to a broken program that should have been retired long ago. As I drove away, the city lights blurred against the windshield. The noise of traffic swallowed everything. But in my mind, there was only silence, the kind that follows an explosion after all the dust has settled. Betrayal isn't rare. It just wears different uniforms: a wife, a friend, a boss. The faces change, but the pattern doesn't. Someone gives everything. Someone takes it for granted. Then comes the reckoning. Always. And when it's over, the world doesn't applaud. It just goes quiet again, waiting for the next story.